Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel, and today I want to talk to you about a little experiment I'm doing in my sketch kit to keep things as light as possible. If you've watched some of my past videos, you've seen what I normally carry in my bag for urban sketching and for plein air, and I've tried to pare it down a lot over the past few years, but I still sometimes feel like I'm carrying too much stuff. This summer, I have a lot of really exciting travel plans, including a trip to Paris coming up, and I want to take my sketching stuff, but I don't want to have heavy things weighing me down. What I found in some recent trips, where when I'm traveling with other people and I'm fitting sketching in, 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there, if I'm carrying around a big bag of sketching supplies, and I don't use them, I can get kind of annoyed about that, and that makes me want to not carry them at all. So that's the problem I'm trying to fix, and that's what we're going to take a look at in this video. So if you're new here, I'm Diane Mulligan. I am a watercolor artist, writer, and teacher from Central Massachusetts in the Northeast US. So let me show you a little bit of what I'm talking about. I recently invested in this art toolkit travel case, thinking this would help me stay organized and minimal. I got with it this teeny tiny little palette, and I actually road tested this little setup when I was visiting my mother recently, and it's pretty good. It is very light, it fits the essentials, but it's also kind of large, and it requires being inside another bag. I don't carry big purses, so that's not really going to help me if I need something I can just throw in a pocketbook. So for my upcoming trip to Paris, I made this very little sketchbook, and I did this with just glue and bookbinding tape. And I've been thinking of setups where I can take this and just some pens and a water brush and have everything I need, but still have some color. And that's where this little light bulb of inspiration went off for me, that I had heard that you could use Inktense pencils to make a palette for yourself for urban sketching. So that's what I'm going to show you in this video. My goal is that I will be able to just throw my little sketchbook, and what I have here is a water brush, a micron pen, so a permanent fine liner. This is a Stabilo pen, which is water soluble, and then a brush pen, which is waterproof once it is dried. And if I have these three pens, a water brush, and I've prepared some pages in my sketchbook, I have everything I need to do really quick, efficient sketches when other people are waiting for me. So let's take a look. Okay, so here you can see I have my little box of Inktense pencils, and I have probably way too many of these because I love color, and yeah, I just kept collecting colors. And what I've decided to do is test this out in the sketchbook I'm currently using, not my new one, that's for the trip. And I decided I would choose some colors of Inktense and make some really dark swatches on the top of the page. So here I'm using washi tape to just measure off the border. I typically like to sketch in a size of about 5 by 7 in here, so you can see I've got my pre-measured template, and I'm making sure I leave enough space on the page for my sketch. And then I have chosen some pairs of colors. What I decided to do was go really limited palette. This way I don't have to overthink the colors I put down, and basically I just looked at all my Inktense swatches that you see here and chose pairs, so that each page I have two colors that I think will play really nicely together. An easy way to do this is use complementary colors, so using a blue and an orange, a yellow and a purple. For one page, I chose a pink and sepia, so a neutral and a pop of color, and basically just set those out so that When I go to fill these sketchbook pages, the colors have already been selected for me, and I can use them to add value, add a pop of interest to the sketch. But obviously these aren't going to be sketches where I'm aiming for realistic color. So I did deliberate a bit about colors, but yeah, in the end, I think since I'm just trying this out, the best bet is to pick things that are just some pairs that will play nicely together. The actual pairs I chose were, on one page I put indigo and baked earth. These are both colors of Inktense that are absolutely beautiful, and I've used each of them for monochrome sketching, and I just think they'll pair really nicely together. And then on the next page I did charcoal gray and oxide red. Oxide red is another of my absolute favorite Inktense colors. It's just so rich and highly pigmented. It comes out great, and that's actually what I'm swatching here. So I laid out the page this way where I put my swatch boxes in the upper right hand corner of the page, and then when I do the page on the left, I will also put them in the upper right hand there along the spine. The reason I'm putting them all on the right side is I know from other sketchbooks, Inktense will, when you don't use water to fix it, when you just use it dry, it can smudge, and I didn't want the colors to contaminate each other. So this way, when the sketchbook is closed, the swatches won't rub up against each other, basically. So that's the oxide red that I'm putting in now, and next to it will be the charcoal gray. All right, and having good sharp points is good here. You want to make these boxes really, really dark so you have enough pigment that you're going to be able to lift it up and fill out the page with it. Okay, and so here goes the baked earth and indigo. And I tried to keep everything nice and labeled so I know what I'm doing and I remember what these are when it's time to sketch later. And for my next spread, I used dark mink, which is a purpley gray color, and golden yellow, so sticking with pairs of complementary colors. And my final pair was sepia and deep rose. My next big decision was what I should put in my little elastic pen holder, which I picked up last year at a stationery store because I thought it would be super handy, but I've never used it. And here my first attempt to use it was a complete comedy of errors. I couldn't figure out how to get any of the pens in it or stuck to it, and I fumbled around with it for way more time than I would like to admit, but in the end I did figure it out. What seemed to work best was, first of all, the waterbrush will just not go in any of the holders, so I gave up on that. But if you have one of these and you can't figure out what to do, what's easiest is to actually take it off your sketchbook, get the pens in it, and then put it around your sketchbook. So it took me a while to figure that out, and I also had to really deliberate about what pens made sense. I decided not to bring any pencils because bringing a pencil would mean bringing an eraser and slowing me down. Instead, I thought the best bet would be to have a water-resistant pen and a water-soluble pen and a brush pen. And that is ultimately what I selected here. I have a micron pen, which are really great, versatile, permanent fine liners. Stabilo pens, which are super cheap and are somewhat water soluble, so you can add tone quickly, and then my Pentel brush pen. And eventually, as you see here, I sort of figured it out. I got everything in, but yeah, it took a bit of fiddling. Once I had my kit set up, of course, I needed to go test it, and I've been super busy finishing up the school year. I didn't have a lot of time to go anywhere, but I could go to my backyard. So I took my notebook to my yard and decided to sketch this little clump of, I think they're wild geraniums that are growing by our woodshed. And as you can see here, I did my initial sketch using the Stabilo pen, and using the water brush, I could move those ink lines around to just put some really quick instant tone on the page on areas that I want to be a little bit shaded. And I found that I really loved having the pen holder on the side of my page like that. That was super convenient to not be like juggling things and dropping pens. And overall, the concept worked. So I'm not going to say wild geraniums were the best subject matter for this color palette or test, but in terms of proof of concept, this was pretty good for me. What you see here is I'm picking up the sepia ink from the swatch I drew at the top of the page, and then using that to paint around the flowers. And that sepia ink really held up. In fact, that one swatch that I made was enough to cover this entire background, which was pretty terrific. And then I could use the pink to make the flowers pop out. And basically what you'll see here is I went back and forth and built up some layers. One of the things about Inktense pencils, they seem like watercolor pencils, but after you activate them with water, when they dry, they're supposed to be waterproof. So basically, you only get one shot at it, if that makes sense. But when you put down a really thick layer like those swatches I did, it will keep reactivating. So where I have lifted it with water and then placed it the way you would a watercolor paint, that's now permanent. But the swatches themselves still have a lot of pigment on them that I can move around, which is very handy. So just as I would with watercolor, I'm building up the layers, doing some negative painting to try to make my flowers stand out a little bit more. And one of the great things about Inktense, besides the fact that they are permanent once they're activated and dried, is that you don't need to have really nice watercolor paper. I can be kind of a snob about my sketchbooks. If I'm doing watercolor, I only want 100% cotton. But actually Inktense, you can use less expensive paper. They're not watercolor, they're an ink product, and yeah, they work really well on the pulp paper, so that's a bonus. You can see here I'm just punching up some of the flowers a little bit, seeing how much more I can get from the pink that I put down. Plenty, it turned out I had plenty of pigment available. And not my greatest sketch ever, but it shows that the concept works, and that's all I really was after. And then here I decided to use the brush pen to just add more depth and darks to build in some shadows. I'm pretty sure, but not 100% sure, that this brush pen, when it is totally dry, I believe it is actually waterproof, but it puts down a pretty juicy amount of ink. So if you're quick, when you put down this ink, you can then take a brush pen and move it around a little bit, and you'll see me doing that here. Yeah, so you can see that I had no trouble dragging that ink and kind of softening the edge to build the value because the ink went down quite wet. And I think actually adding that extra dark did a lot to shape up this sketch. So, yeah, if I say so myself, good call. And that is where I finished up with that one. Pretty happy with the experiment and excited to give this one more try. So my second field test, this was a super quick sketch of some cut peonies that I had on my dining room table. And I only had maybe 15 minutes before work one day, and I thought, well, this will be a perfect test. I once again don't think flowers are actually the best choice for this method of sketching, but it was what I had in front of me that I liked at the time. And here I used the yellow to kind of show where the light is hitting and coming through the petals, and the mink to do the shadows. They're pretty full, enthusiastic peonies, so quite complicated. What I discovered in this test was that even though the swatches are about the same size as the others, the dark mink definitely didn't carry as far. It's not as intense as the sepia, so there's clearly plenty of experimentation to do. But overall, again, I feel like it was good proof of concept. All right, so that's it. My proof of concept gave me some confidence to move forward with this technique. I still have 2 more pages to fill in this sketchbook, and when I get to do those, I will share the results. But basically, my little test made me think this was going to be a really good idea for traveling, and so I did set up some pages here in my trip sketchbook. I did a spread where I have baked earth and green aquamarine, and one with mustard and nightshade. And I don't know, you probably can't see on the video, but I was right to align the swatches this way because the pigment is rubbing off a little, but that's okay. And I also did a page with hot red and deep indigo, and then golden yellow and sepia. And I'm really excited to give these a try. Now, I will, of course, be taking my watercolors on my trip, but I just want to have options for days when I have less time and other people are waiting on me to do really quick sketching, and to have options for days where I don't want to have a whole backpack of art supplies, but just my sketchbook and a couple of pens, and I can't wait to see how it goes. If you have tried out this technique with Inktense, I would love to hear about your experience. What colors did you use? How did it go? What tips and tricks did you find? And share in the comments. I would love to hear about it. And stay tuned for more videos. Thanks, everyone.